This air conditioner right here that we're looking at, this is what we would call a condenser, okay? So you got one unit, air conditioning unit, that is a whole package unit. It has all of it is outside, none of it is inside. This air conditioner, part of this air conditioner is outside, part of this air conditioner is inside. So we're going to talk about both parts of this air conditioner so you understand. The way this unit works is, this is coils. Can you get a good picture of the coil right there? You can see how clean they are. It looks, they're not dirty and all. This coil has to be clean. So what happens is that fan pulls air across that coil, and there's refrigerant running through those copper lines at the bottom. And it takes a vapor refrigerant that's going into that compressor, and it condenses it down into a liquid refrigerant. And then that liquid refrigerant leaves this and goes to your evaporator. If that coil right there is real dirty, that's going to cause you a problem. It's going to cause you excessive high pressure on your compressor. It's going to cause you possibly to burn up a compressor, burn up your whole air conditioner, have to put a new air conditioner in. So when people cut the grass, you got to make sure whoever's cutting your grass, whoever's weeding your grass, they never allow the dirt, or they never allow the dust, or they never allow the grass to get hung up on your coils. If you see that, you should immediately take a hose and go spray them off and clean it. Because the hotter it gets outside, the harder that is and the worse it is for your air conditioner to operate under those circumstances. So when you got an air conditioning company that's saying, hey, I need to come out and do a tune-up on your air conditioner in the fall and in the springtime, I don't disagree with those tune-ups. But here's the question. What they're going to do on a tune-up is they're going to clean your coil. And then what they should be doing is they should be checking your contactors and see if your contactors are pitted. So if your contactors are pitted, you should allow them to replace those contactors, because if it's badly pitted, what's going to wind up happening possibly throughout the summertime is that contactor will close, and it will arc when it closes. It'll make an electrical spark. And when it makes that spark, it will weld those contacts closed, and your air conditioner won't stop running. So then it's going to cost you probably $500 for a service call for them to come out and replace that contactor. While they're already here doing that service, they can replace that contactor. They cost them about 20 bucks. So maybe they charge you 50 bucks to replace the contactor. It's not a lot of money to do that. And it's just good business. I would say the average contactor probably needs to start being replaced after about 5 years. And that's more of a predictive maintenance or a preventive maintenance than it is an absolute necessity. Do you have to have it done at 5 years? Maybe, maybe not. But I would say after 5 years, the contactor's had enough wear that I would spend the extra $50 and get it done so that there's something else that doesn't happen because of that. Another thing that will happen as them contacts get pitted is they will close, but they don't make enough of a contact to actually run your unit. So that's another thing that can happen. And if it runs it, if it's not making enough, it can throw not excessive voltage to your unit. What it'll do is cause an excessive amp draw to your unit, which can burn up a compressor also. So have that kind of stuff checked. If you got a new unit, it's a brand new house, got a new unit, you don't necessarily have to have this service done. That's something you got to look at and decide if you want to do it. If you have a company that says, well, we're going to come out and I'm going to put gauges on that unit when we do your spring and your fall tune-up, I would not let them people service my unit. Every time you put gauges on that unit, you lose a little bit of refrigerant from that unit. Every time you put gauges in that unit, you have an opportunity for non-condensables to get into that unit also. If your unit is running, and I'm going to talk to you in a minute when we go inside about what delta T means, but I'm going to give you a good way to check your unit at your house and tell whether that unit is running at the peak efficiency. And if you know your unit's running at peak efficiency, then I would say if that coil is clean and it's not a 5-year-old or older unit, and you know the contactor is good in it, that really is the only component in there that they're going to check. If you got a bad board, it's not going to be running. So they're not really checking the boards or anything. They're coming in, they're going to check your superheat, your subcooling. They're going to be able to tell everything they need from that. They don't need to hook a gauge to your unit unless it's necessary. They found a different problem to hook that gauge to it. If you have a unit that is old, let's say it's 5 years old and it has a leak, have them fix the leak. There's a good chance that that leak, the parts, whatever is bad on that leak, will be covered by warranty. I would not put a stop leak product into that unit at 5 years old. If you got a unit that's 10 years old, they're going to tell you need to replace the unit because it's got a leak in it. Before I would replace a unit with a leak, because that's going to cost you somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000, I would probably ask them to put a can of no leak or stop leak in it. And when they put the stop leak in it, there's a good chance it's going to stop the leak that's in your coil or wherever it's at, and that unit may perform another 5 or 10 years. But there's also a chance when you put stop leak in a unit, because what it's designed to do is plug up any hole that may be in the refrigerant lines or in the condensing coil or your evaporator coil, because that's what it's designed for. Because of that, you don't want to put it in a new unit. But if it's an old unit you're going to replace anyway, if they do it and it fails, so what? They were already there. They were already going to charge you a service call. Maybe they charge you an additional $100 to do it, but maybe it saves you $5,000 in the end. So you really need to know what questions to ask your service technician whenever they're out here. I am for the stop leak if you got to replace the unit, because why replace a unit that isn't bad? They're going to tell you, well, the newer units are more efficient. That is not a lie. That is the truth. The newer units are more efficient. But is it so much more efficient? It might save you a couple $100 a year on your electric bill. It could. If it's a really old unit, it could save you a couple $100 a year. But are you going to spend $10,000 or $7,000 or $5,000 to replace a unit to save $200 a year? I would go and pay the extra couple $100 a year and get the efficiency out of the unit that I could. I'm a guy that does this for a living, and at my last house that I had before we just built a new house, but on the other house, the air conditioners were 18 years old. That's what they were. And I never replaced them because they never broke. Anything went wrong with them, I had to replace a contact, I would just fix the contact or replace that. If it, I did have one at a previous house that I put some stop leak in because it was leaking, and it worked and it held up. So it's a viable option. So don't throw that out of the door. And a lot of people are going to tell you, well, it's probably going to stop your unit up. It probably is not going to stop your unit up, but there is a chance that it will. They're trying to scare you. They're trying to get you to go and buy a new unit, because you got to understand, most air conditioning companies nowadays, the technicians get spiffed. So the technicians get extra money when they sell a homeowner a unit. They are incentivized to sell you a unit. I hate that about our industry. I got out of doing residential air conditioning because I hated that so much I wasn't willing to live in that world. I wanted to fix your unit. I didn't want to replace your unit, but somebody else already told them, well, you got to replace it. Well, you don't have to replace it. We can fix it. I can fix it for a few $100s, or you can replace it for $5,000. So ask the right questions. If you got a question on that, throw it at the bottom of our video and say, hey, I got a question. I got a contractor telling me I need to put a unit in. It's 10 years old and this is happening, that's happening. I'm going to probably tell you don't have to replace a unit at 10 years old, because these units are designed to last longer. They don't design them to last 30 years like they used to. 20 years ago, you could buy an air conditioner and get 30 years out of it and they would last. Nowadays, they don't design them like that. They design them to break at around the 10-year mark. You can start having some repair work on them. The coils aren't as strong as they were. Things aren't as good as it was. But that's the world we live in 2023. If you're out here in the summertime and you're looking at this unit and you hear the unit running, but this fan is not running. The fan's not running at all. If that is the case, then my suggestion for you is to unplug it, unhook it from the disconnect. If this is the kind of disconnect it's got, all you got to do is put your finger on these tabs, pull it out, and turn it off. This is called a condenser fan. So when this fan is running, what this fan is doing is it's pulling the heat away from the compressor. It's pulling the heat, the air through here. It's taking the air and it's blowing out. It's going in cold or air temperature. It's coming out hot because it's condensing the refrigerant in there. And when it does that, that keeps your compressor cool. When that goes out, then you're going to run 500 pounds of head pressure, and it's going to take a very short period of time before it burns up your compressor, and it costs you thousands and thousands of dollars. So always, if you see this fan not running, but you can hear that compressor running, and it's summertime, unplug that unit. You may hear it do that in the wintertime, and it may be a fan cycling control on or something that's stopping the fan from running. I'm talking about summertime. In the summertime, disconnect it.